Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the One Nation of Gamers Summer Circuit North American Qualifier number 4. Once again, I'm Osmo, joined by Hot Form. And Hot Form, we're about to jump into the third place match between Deckizz and Powder. And what have been your thoughts so far in the day, and of course of this matchup coming up?
Well, I guess my thoughts are that the Patron Warrior lost 3 games in a row, right?
Yeah,
So the only Warrior that we were seeing play today, and I was a player that played in the open brackets yesterday, so most of the people in the open brackets were bring Patron Warrior, which makes it really interesting to see that a Patron Warrior did not make it through at all. Um, and I guess we'll see if Powder can take some games with that Patron Warrior now. I don't want to oversell the story on Patron Warrior because I'm sure you guys have heard a lot of it, but it is just one of those such dominant decks right now that it's really crazy to see it doing not well in the lineups.
yeah, I definitely agree. I was so surprised earlier today when I was looking at the brackets, and of the 4 players that we were going to see competing, only one brought Warrior, like you said, and 2 brought Shaman, and 1 brought a Priest. These are the continuation of that open bracket, like you said. And these players already had to win 7, 8 best of fives with this exact deck lineup. So it's really cool to see a little bit of diversity because in the past weeks we've seen like Hunter Warlock Warrior or Druid Warlock Warrior in almost every single winner's lineup. So it's cool to see a little bit of a of diversity going on here.
Okay, this was this was Decky's Shaman, so we didn't get to see him play it yet, right?
No, no, yeah, I don't think we did. We saw the Mech Shaman from Binip, but the Shaman we have not seen.
I think Deckys was a player who also got through the open brackets one previous time as well to make it to this spot. So he's definitely a consistent player, and I'm pretty sure that he did bring Shaman last time as well.
Was it mid-range Shaman? Midnight Totem says yes. Manatide Totem indicates yes.
Yep, the double Mana Tide. We can see another one in his hand, which I'm always a fan of. Hmm.
What do you think the overall strength level of mid-range Shaman is right now? A lot of people still consider it weak, even after all these meta shifts. Do you agree still?
All right, you want my professional opinion as a
I
Shaman player?
do
So,
want your professional opinion.
so my opinion is that Shaman cards are great. The cards like Hex, cards like Flame Dunk Totem, each of those cards is so amazing compared to neutral cards or other class cards. Hex is the absolute best removal in the game. Silences, kills the creature for 3 mana. Um, but Shaman lacks card draw, and these mid-range Shaman decks, if they could more reliably draw through their deck, would be very viable. But because all they have is Mana Tide, and then you can put, some Azure Drakes and neutral card draw in, it's just not enough to make you consistent. So you're looking for a really good draw each time. But that makes it tough because you don't have a way to control it as a player. Whereas something like a Patron Warrior, you have Battle Rage, you have these mechanics to draw your entire deck, and then that way you can strategize a lot better, knowing that you will get certain cards in 2 turns, for example.
Yeah, or a hero power that can buy you more time
Yeah,
or contribute to your win condition. Whereas Shaman's it feels like it's sometimes it can, but at other times it does nothing.
yeah, the Shaman hero power is pretty notorious.
Yeah. They should change the warrior hero power to gain between 0 and 3 armor at random.
This opening is absolutely insane, though. Here I was talking about Shaman not having card draw, and we see double Mana Tide remaining on the board. No weapons at all in Trig's hand.
Now he has to start spending cards recklessly just to
Yeah.
not draw too many.
Sorry, I always call Powder Trig, but that's actually his team name. It's a catchy team name.
Yeah, Trig Esports. Those guys have been together for a really long time. Powder and D2 and I forgot the third. It's like the Three Musketeers. I'll get back to you. My subconscious is working away.
It's probably about time to use up the Mana Tides, right? You have to. I mean, the Ghoul is pretty problematic here. You could just play Sludge Belcher and wait, and you'd get 2 more cards out of it. You actually can't fit all of those cards in your hand, anyways, though. If you were to draw off both Mana Tides and only play one thing, you'd overdraw.
Mhm. Faramir is the third player. Powder, D2, and Faramir, the three musketeers. Been through thick and thin across multiple teams.
It's a pretty good Emperor hand. You don't have the Warsong Commander, but everything else works together for a really nice combo turn.
Yeah, and if you do draw Warstone Commander, you have the free Whirlwind, the reduced cost, Frothing Berserker, and Gropitch. I mean, what else are you going to do in that situation, to be honest?
Yeah.
Uh, Aside from using a combo piece and an execute just to clear the Sludge Belcher off the board.
You could have played the four patron combo there with patron, inner rage, whirlwind. Actually would have been pretty effective, but there's so many cards in the shaman's hand, you'd probably expect a lightning storm to have shown up by now.
Yeah, for sure. He's drawn through what feels like nearly half his deck already at this stage in the game.
This is going to be a very interesting match. It feels like probably Powder is just going to wait for a long time, and then eventually he's going to draw a Warsong Commander and kill him all at once.
Or he's going to get really impatient and play six Grim Patrons and then get lightning stormed and concede.
Yeah. So let's say he played six patrons here. Would work really well for him.
Yeah, yeah, definitely would have. He would have only what one of them would have been able to get dealt with from the slime.
Yeah, I think it would have just been a single patron died. He would have remained with five. Could have
Yeah.
almost been game winning, but I think it's pretty reasonable not to play it here. You do have that significant one shot potential with both the patron and frothing reduced because when you make more patrons and then you get the AoE damage, there's a whole lot of stuff on the board for the frothing to gain from.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Is he? Yeah, doesn't attack. Does not want to give him get him closer to having value from Battle Rage.
Really? Wow. That's very surprising to me.
Bold, and it looks like he had like a slight smirk on his face when he did that. Like he was really proud of himself.
I wonder if he threw a bloodlust in or something, and he expects that he'll draw into an easy win.
Well, yeah, he might also think that he might win in a grindy game, but I'm not sure if that's the case, considering Powder might have been able to hold off long enough to be able to kill him in one turn. But his board is super hard to get through right now, especially without the Warsong Commander to be able to bounce off at least one of these Feral Spirits.
Okay, so he's gonna get three cards off the Battle Rage. I guess he's just feeling like it's do or die time at this point, and the patrons themselves, like we were talking about, will be pretty effective here.
Hmm.
The Battle Rage, though, only getting three cards, you barely got back what you invested in that turn. So,
Oh, second Battle Rage.
wow.
Well, that refills his hand, so that makes that turn significantly better in that case. His patrons are going to get dealt with, but at least he's got a little bit of extra juice than what he started with at the beginning of the last
Okay,
turn.
are his patrons gonna get dealt with? Looks like he can kill four, so he could, with the hex, he could kill five, which means that he'll be left with at least some one health patrons.
Yeah, unless he gets a bluegill warrior from the Pilot Shredder.
If we did a bit of calculation, we could see that the Warsong Commander was two draws away. I think it was probably worth it for Powder to go for it there, just because he had Battle Rage. But if he had waited and he got the Warsong, if he hadn't died at that point, he might have been able to win there.
Hmm.
Oh, he can actually kill all of them if he uses the Hex too.
Ruby and Egg. Pretty convenient with the Flame Tongue Totem there. Yeah, I think. Oh, Hex seemed pretty reasonable because I guess outside of Frothing Berserkers and Emperor Thorsan, which he's already used Emperor Thorsan, there's not that many other Hex targets, but being protective of that Hex, being a little bit more conservative with it, I suppose. And leaving one health patron up is not that big of a deal because there's nothing that you can combo with it except for commanding shout, which if he had been watching earlier, there's a bit of delay, but he could see that Powder does not run commanding shouts, at least from what we've seen.
You also don't spawn an extra patron if you use commanding shout
Oh
on a
yeah,
one
that's
health
true.
one.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Makes you think it should. Like, yeah, I saved his life. I got commanding shout, but then
Well,
the patron has to take damage, and he's not taking damage.
yeah, not really. I guess it's the same situation as you don't draw a card from Acolyte of Pain with commanding shout if it's one health either,
Yep.
because it's not technically not taking damage because it's already at one. Even though like when you attack in, the damage shows like there's it's not a zero. Like if your patron has one health and you attack into something, the damage number still shows up on it even if it has commanding shout, but doesn't respawn one. It's really weird.
Uh, oh, what happened
Ooh,
here? Is this enough?
that's 8, 20. Yeah, that is enough. Oh my
Wow.
god. That is yep,
Well,
well
there
you
we
called it.
go. Patron Warrior takes the game. It was good. Powder did lose three in a row with it, so I'm sure he's happy to take one back. It's a little late to save his entire tournament run, but still some good satisfaction off that win, I bet.
Hmm. Yeah, you could see a little smile sneak across his face. But yeah, Patron Warrior just doing Patron Warrior things.
We were talking about the Acolyte damage. Did you see the Disguised Toast video where an Acolyte can take damage and draw a card even after it's dead?
Oh really? In what situation?
So
I did see this video.
he played the Acolyte and then three explosive sheep, and then he killed one explosive sheep, and the Acolyte drew three cards. The third explosive sheep triggered, and even though the Acolyte has negative health, it still takes damage and draws him an extra card.
That's crazy. Some
Yeah.
weird interactions in
Yeah.
Hearthstone.
Hearthstone's full of that stuff that as a pro
Yeah.
player you miss one of those and everybody makes fun of you.
Yeah, but there's just really so many that you have to keep track of. Like interesting interactions like that. Like before, we saw one that wasn't quite as complicated, but I guess in reality it is. Where Vinib didn't dark bomb before he hellfired for the armor gain when he was hellfiring. Like if he had dark
Yeah.
bombed and then hellfired, the damage would have applied, and VX would have died before the armor was applied for the armor smith. So it's, yeah, it's things like that that you have to sort of make sure you keep track of. It's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of those really super subtle ones. So Shaman versus Druid. This is probably about the best matchup for Shaman of any matchup possible. You can kind of keep up with the Druid on cards. You'll have board control more often than not because your creatures are less expensive and you have a lot of removal for the Druids, guys.
Yeah. It feels like you can trade up a lot. You can use something small like a Haunted Creeper or a Totem and use Flame Tongue to buff it up to kill something bigger. So more inherent value out of each of those
Yeah,
less
definitely.
expensive drops.
The mind control tech is going to be a huge player in this match, though. Could steal a totem, could steal something amazing and win the entire game.
Yeah. We were talking about the strengths of Mind Control Tech earlier and what classes it was strong against. We forgot to mention Shaman.
Uh, so
But it
no
is strong.
play.
The Shredder, right on time.
This is when the druid really starts to struggle. They missed one turn, and the shaman's cards just look amazing. When you look at that hand, it feels like you're ready to deal with anything he could play.
Hmm. Yep. And then once you build up that big board, it's really hard for the druid to come back. Like even totems, just believing totems on the board can pose a threat when you factor in like flame tongue totem. So my control deck, what it steals as the game progresses, could end up being a big deal because I know it's going to be using that Pagel.
Oh, poor Pagel. No time to fish today.
Yeah, unfortunate in this circumstance, but uh, Deckizz does have a pretty clean way to deal with the shade with the Azure Drake Coiner Shock.
He already had the spell power totem, so he didn't have to Azure Drake. I think it's still a really good play here because you get the body, you get the card draw. He could have played Mana Tide and Earthshock as well and tried to set up like a persistent card draw threat.
Yeah. In either way, next turn he can play Fire Elemental. The Innervate Rag. He needs us to hit the Azure Drake pretty much because it's going to get super punished. Ooh.
And that was the absolute worst thing.
So now he's got multiple ways, and Big Game Hunter, of course, less flexible than Hex, so might as well use that one first. It also builds up a little bigger of a board, and he could play Mana Tide Totem on top of that to start that draw engine. So this is looking pretty rough for Powder at this stage.
Well, all right. Boom off the top is a pretty good draw since you just saw him play BGH. You're looking for recovery now, though. You're not even thinking about how are you going to kill him. You just want to get something to stay on the board. You're right that Hex is a lot more flexible. Like even hexing something such as a piloted Shredder, the 4-drop, can be worth it. You gain 1 mana of tempo and you just deal with the creature. If it was their only creature, it can win you a lot of situations.
Mm-hmm. I need something big here. Piloted Shredder is a creature. That is a fact.
Oh
Oh
man.
no. He's going to have to use Force of Nature to clear the board here, and it's not even going to clear the Mana Tide Totem off the board, so the draw engine is still going to be in place, and Deckizz is just going to continue to amass a pretty big card advantage.
I think it didn't make a huge difference there. What he played, the Druid is in a bad situation anyways, but the silence on the Manatide and then playing Shredder might be better because the mind control tech is like your one big play. So allowing the opponent to stack up a couple creatures could mean you're a little luckier later.
Yeah, I do. I do think that's pretty good reasoning. But it can be pretty scary as well to leave big creatures up like that on the board. And you know that you're probably going to get value out of the mind control tech regardless. And
So you play a Flame Tongue here, and then that way your Alakir can get the buff next turn. You could even do Alakir plus the second Flame Tongue next turn, making Alakir do 14 damage.
sick.
But he'll be overloaded.
Yeah. He's still going to have a lot of damage. Actually gets a 7 for the Destroyer as well. So he's got 12, 15, 25
Okay.
potential damage.
Oh, not what he was looking for.
I mean, would you rather have stolen the Flame Tongue or the Haunted Creeper? Which one's the worst in that case? I think Haunted Creeper is slightly better than Flame
Yeah.
Tongue,
Yeah, I'd agree. Haunted Creeper is slightly better.
but still really rough. And now he's pretty much out of cards. Azure Drake Swipe is can be a good way to come back on the board, um, but he's just in such a rough position. You could tell he looks pretty devastated right now.
But I mean, honestly, I don't think you really expect to take this match. When you pick Druid into Shaman, you got to be feeling like, I need to get rather lucky here to actually win.
Mhm.
The deck from Deckizz is very well constructed for these kind of mid-game fights as well, with like Sylvanas, Alakir. He just put a lot of legendaries in there to strengthen it up.
Bold move. Bold
So,
move playing Shaman, but it's paying off for him, it looks like so far, at least this match.
oh no, trade the spider first. I don't like that play. If he trades the spider into the sludge dies, and then he has the 1/1s to get stolen.
Yeah. Well, it's not the worst situation, but
Yeah, he did pretty much clear the board, which had looked impossible a few seconds ago.
mhm. And he does have Ancient of War to draw into more stuff, but it might be too little too late. Depends on what he can draw into. Wrath is decent. It allows him to kill one of these creatures off the board, so he's going to be able to preserve a little bit. And I don't know. Could we see Powder mount a comeback? Doubtful.
So Damage right now, 16. Alakir Flame Tongue for 16. Actually, you could do 18 if you bounce the attack buff. So he's 1 damage off lethal here. You could do double spell power Lightning Storm. Oh, this is good too, yeah.
Yeah, more consistent this way. And next turn, he sets up for lethal with um, just the Alakir.
Well, BGH not going to do a whole lot.
He needs like what Force of Nature just to be able to clear off the Fire Elemental, but he can't really even put him on having that burst in sand. So he's going to play Emperor Thorsan, but it looks like that is going to be Deckizz taking the game. 10 damage plus the 6 in hand from Alakir, and he does throw out the well played. He's getting his revenge for the 20 damage Frothing Berserkers last game.
Yeah. Well, that was a pretty good game. I always like seeing the shaman do well. It looked like a pretty standard shaman list. It was a bit of like a greedier list that I
Hmm.
think he probably techs for the tournament setting, like on ladder
Yeah,
against a lot of aggro that could be punished. But in a tournament setting, it looked really successful there.
yeah. And so he's going to take a win with the Shaman. Second win was Shaman of the day. First win for Deckizz. And next matchup is both players actually have the exact same decks remaining. Um, well, Deckizz did have Handlock also. No, no, I actually take that back. Deckizz actually had mid-range Zoo, if I remember correctly. It was in the first match of the day. I know Powder had
Uh,
Handlock.
yes, I think you're right that they had different Warlock decks. There was also somebody playing Malagos Warlock as well.
Believe that was Vinib.
But yeah, they definitely have different warlocks. The druids looked pretty similar. I think they're both double combo druids with shredders. It's a very normal lineup now. One of really the only tech choices I see coming out is the ooze. Either they have an ooze or don't have an ooze.
Mhm. So the result of this matchup is gonna come down to how their decks match up, I think, because I feel like Deckizz has a bigger advantage with his Warlock deck going up against Powder's Druid, whereas it's sort of the other way around. So if Deckizz gets good deck matchups here, he should be in a pretty good spot with Druid matching up against Handlock and his Zoolock matching up against Druid. But it's all going to depend on whether or not he can get those good matchups for the
Yep.
next game.
We're just waiting for the players to take a quick rest break from all these matches. Oh, we
Hmm.
are hopping back into the game already, though. That was quick.
All right.
So, Hand Warlock versus Druid. It's hard to say. A lot rides on the BGH and the Mountain Giants, really. The first
Yeah.
person to get like a 4 drop to stay on the board.
I think with this matchup, it's so much more important than any other matchup to have a good early curve, like to have that turn four power play, like you said, um, because it really sets the pace for the game. It can seem unwinnable if you're the Warlock and you fall behind on board early on because you have to play around combo starting from like turn six. Whereas it can feel unwinnable if you're the druid and you don't draw into removal early on because you're staring at huge threats, like you're staring at a mountain giant when all you have is a druid to claw, things like that. So it's such a really interesting matchup when you get down to it. If one player draws really poorly and one player draws really well, it can feel unwinnable.
So, we definitely have an interesting strategy from Powder. He's choosing to go with the early Yeti, which I kind of like. He had that in his opening hand, so you might as well go for it. And then it also synergized with the Twilight Drake. But his Mountain Giant is pretty much unplayable now. Maybe around turn 6 he could get it out.
Hmm.
And then the innervated Emperor next turn, which I imagine is going to come down, is going to mean that the Yeti is almost useless. There's no way to pick up that 1 damage to actually kill it.
Yeah. Well, innovate Thorsan with double force of nature in hand. The ultimate turn 10, 12 damage combination. You never expect it.
That's a really good hand to Emperor, though. The Force of Natures are always solid. Pilot Sky Golem, Druid of the Claw, just like really beefy things that you want to be able to play for less, anyways.
Yeah, and he does have the BGH as well to be able to deal with a giant. He doesn't have any way to deal with the Twilight Drake, but well, he does, not really efficiently. But that's not what he's worried too much about. It's only a 7 health one. It's not that powerful, and it's not going to really clear his creatures in one hit like a Mountain Giant would. So he has taken quite a beating so far this game, but he's going to be rewarded for the early aggression that Powder went with.
So if you Shadow Flame here, you can still play either Emperor or Mountain Giant next turn, and that way you clear the board. Because the both Force of Natures got double reduced, we could actually see like an Innervate double Force of Nature Savage Roar. It's very rarely seen, but a double reduction makes it like in the realm
Oh
of
yes,
possibility.
oh yes, the place that I live to see. And he's actually going to get super punished here. Ah, I would say play Emperor Thorson here just so you don't get punished as much by
I don't know.
BGH.
That's really tough because the Emperor loses to Sky Golem.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It's tough when you can see the perspective from both players because you know that he's just going to get punished really easily. But um, that is the right play, I suppose, playing the Mountain Giant. Wow, and Deckizz actually has Ancient of
Wow.
Wars.
What? That's crazy. Why? He had a BGH. He had only one creature on the board, so the BGH is really useful as a creature. Goes down to 12 health and uses up a 12 damage burst combo from his hand.
Bold. Very, very bold.
Yeah, I'll give him bold there.
Wow. Really protective of that BGH. He's saving it until the last possible moment. Maybe it's he's since it's reduced, he's going to try and use it to push through, like
I
later on in
mean,
the game to get through a taunted up giant.
yeah, the BGH is always good. And like we can see that the Warlock doesn't have a way to have dealt with it, which is why it looks so appealing to play it there. But maybe you're worried about like a Hellfire, Mortal Coil, or something cleaning up the board if you put the 2 health creature down. I don't know. That was pretty wild to me. He should have
Yeah.
traded the Sky Golem first in case he got a summoning portal.
Wow. You're right.
Uh,
Misplay.
top level plays.
Yeah. It's the first time. Was that Master of Disguise? I think it's the first golden Master of Disguise I've ever seen.
Okay, the damage is really high here, actually. It's 10 in hand. I think he
He's dead.
wins, right?
Yeah. Druid of the Claw plus Force of Nature plus 9 damage on board.
Who
He has
needs
enough room.
BGH?
Yeah, I know, right? It felt like BGH would have made that match a lot easier, but I guess he felt like playing the match on hard mode. He's gonna probably message Powder now. I had BGH too, just to like rub it in. Too bad he can't
Um,
play it at the end there just for the lulls, but he's gonna take a 2-1 lead in the series.
yeah, that came down a lot to the opening. I mean, I think it was a good choice to play the Yeti. I think that, or the Ancient Watcher and then silencing it so you get a turn 3 Yeti. I think that's pretty reasonable. It trades with Shredders. You get the creatures early. You can kind of force the Druid to react to you rather than letting the Druid set up. But then he didn't have a way to kill the Emperor. He was 1 damage off killing the Emperor, and that was super important. He lost his Yeti. Double hit from the Emperor just put so much mana in hand. There wasn't really any way to come back.
Yeah. Yep. And now Deckizz has 2 opportunities to find a win with his Warlock, and I believe he is running the mid-range zoo, and yep, he is. So he's got to find a win against either Powder's Handlock or against Powder's Druid. So against Druid, pretty favorable matchup, but against Handlock, it could be a little bit scary to go up against sometimes.
Yeah, this is a really tactical match. You wouldn't normally pick a Zoo Warlock and say it's going to be super tactical, but this is a match where both players are taking gambles. Both players have to be acknowledging what they think the opponent has, how much damage is there, are the Molten Giants there, and there's a lot of decision making that goes into playing that properly.
Yeah. Double Mortal Coil. Well, he does have some good.
Pretty.
He does have some good tools to be able to get him through this. He's got Molten Giant, which is a key card. He does have Shadow Flame, which can also be a key card sometimes when trying to deal with the board. So we'll see.
He can still end up playing the Mountain Giant on curve if he life taps next turn.
All right, piling on the damage.
No fear.
Well, this is a pretty sick hand for like burst. Having Power Overwhelming and Doomguard on turn 6, that's an extra 9 damage plus what he has on the board to burst through. So he might not even give Powder time to stabilize in this game. Right now, he's thinking of whether or not he wants to tap. If he taps, he's playing nothing else, and he's going to go down to 19 health with 8 damage at least staring at him on the board.
So I kind of like tapping here just for the mental element. If you tap, you're saying to your opponent, the only way I'm going to win this game is Molten Giants. So either I have Molten Giants and you shouldn't attack me, or you have to take a really big risk. By playing a card, it's kind of suggesting like, I'm scared, I don't have what I need right now. If you keep attacking me, it might work really well for you. It could play to his advantage. He has a Molten Giant, but I think there's a lot going on there that you can put in the player's mind.
Yeah. And now he's in a rough spot. He can coin out Molten Giant. But if he does that, then he's going to get pretty punished because he's not going to have that later on to build a wall. But he doesn't really have any other choice because next turn, what Deckizz could do is like power warming his egg and implosion it and then trade in like one of his creatures into the Mountain Giant to kill it and still be left with a really reasonable board.
I don't know. This is pretty bad. Like, yeah, he can kill the giant, right? He could just kill the giant. I like not playing it here because then the opponent is still worried and you might be able to bait him into not attacking.
Yeah. He's got 12
Um,
damage from hand right now
so
with
next
Defender of
turn he's
Argus.
got 9. If he plays the Argus and he trades the Flame Imp, he should have enough damage ready to kill him. I think
Yeah.
this works too.
And he rolls a 4. Wow. He's,
Ooh, just goes for it.
he knows that no matter what type of removal he uses, he's been through an owl already. He's not going to be able to clear everything off the board because he's still got his egg. So as long as one creature stays on the board, he's guaranteed lethal. If like the board is cleared and no taunt is played. And
Yeah.
if he plays Defender of Argus, that's 9 damage that he has to get through. He's got 10 on board plus 9 from hand. He's gonna have lethal. So I think Powder's dead either way. Oh
Uh,
no! Wow!
wow.
Such a
Well,
ballsy call.
that was like a 1 in 21 chance, but
Holy, holy moly! And that saves him.
yeah.
He can't get through this.
Not only does it save him, it's to the point of he can win the entire game off of that play because now he can attack the other warlock with his remaining creatures.
Wow. All right, so let's see how Deckizz can deal with this. He has to. He can power overwhelming to deal 4 damage to one of them. Hmm.
Um,
And
so
then
it is
use.
possible to kill both.
I think he's just gonna try and be resilient and be greedy with his Doomguard here. Play Argent Squire with Defender of Argus on his Egg and Squire, and then pass on the next turn.
So Shadow Flaming the Defender of Argus is pretty strong. It'll leave him with the okay. Shadow Flaming the Ancient Watcher is very strong. The
Wow.
top decks keep coming.
Okay, so if he hadn't drawn into Ancient Watcher there would have been no way for Powder to preserve his board and kill off the entire board. So he
Yep.
would have been left with a 2-1 Argus, but I think that might have even been game because he wouldn't have been able to clear up the Nerubian Egg without attacking in with the Molten Giant. He would have left at least 2 damage up because the Defender of Argus, if he didn't draw into something that he could Shadow Flame that would more than 2 attack, he would have been dead anyway. Or a heal, like a Arthur Ring Farseer, because he would have had exactly 7 damage. So, wow, the double top deck in a row. Pretty sick. And I think that is going to take him to the next game. I don't know. He's going to have to draw into.
Well, it's still pretty close.
He can clear here. And then. Oh, yikes.
That was some pretty fortunate draws by Powder. He definitely played it correctly. There was no way for him to live, right? So you got to give him credit for that. But
Yeah.
Deckizz might feel a little cheated on that one.
Yeah. If he taps, he's. Uh...
Think technically he lives from that play.
yeah.
He's got 2 health left.
Which is not enough to tap, which means he can't draw into anything, and Sludge Belcher is going to solidify it. Unless he's running Rag in here, but very doubtful.
Yeah, pull out the Ragnaros 1 in 6.
Mm-hmm.
It's more
Easy
likely than
peasy.
what Powder did.
Yeah, twice in a row too. The Ancient Watcher was a little bit less of a flashy play because it wasn't immediately apparent, but it's so pretty crazy. Baited
Oh.
Mal'Ganis. Okay.
No. How fitting.
Yeah, definitely sums up the game there for Deckizz. But Powder is going to tie up the series 2-2. So for the second time in a row, we are going to go to a game five.
Well, yeah, the Ancient Watcher was really important too because it was perfectly on curve, right? It was 6 mana that turn, and so
Yeah,
even drawing some other creature and trying to play it for the Shadow Flame wouldn't work. It was really important as well.
yeah.
What a game.
Powder. He apparently Aren't Jesus really wants him to get third place. Uh, but I mean, he did. That's not a call that people will make a lot of times, is saying there's absolutely no way for me to win. So I'm gonna tap and give my opponent like near guaranteed lethal, and try and draw into the one card that's gonna keep me alive for another turn. And so, really got to commend Powder for his cojones in
Yeah,
that match.
no doubt.
All right, well,
Okay,
moving into game
so
five.
the Druid versus the Demon Warlock, which it's a pretty tough fight. I think the mind control tech could be a complete game changer here. We didn't get to see it do too much in the Shaman game.
That's still a Hana Creeper.
Yes. Um, Silence is good. Nothing druidy to play right now, though.
Yeah, well, his hand is still pretty good, like you mentioned. He's got Mind Control Tech. He's got Keeper of the Grove, which is a good card to have early on. But again, no Innervate, no Wild Growth, nothing to sort of get him going, um, and keep him in the game once he stabilizes. Druid of the Claw fits relatively well. Oh, this is so awkward.
I think Savage Roar there to kill the wolf actually might have been a pretty reasonable play because the wolf is 4 damage on the board right now.
Hmm. As opposed to the Squire, which is just would have been one if he had killed the Savage Roar. If he had killed
Okay,
them.
so let's say he probably plays the egg and the squire, right? Now, do you just silence the egg? Like the keeper is an amazing play this turn, but it's the first turn you can use mind control tech.
Yep, instantly.
All right. That's a pretty good one. You can't use the egg too much, but you get to use the keeper on one of the other guys, and the egg would have been popped this turn and traded into whatever else you stole.
Yeah. But
Uh,
now, even if Powder manages to stabilize, he's at 11 health.
yeah, I just noticed the HP there. Turn 5, 11 health is not feeling too great.
So now he's going to keep her. So he's going to take Uh, the wolf seems like represents potentially more damage
Yeah, the
because
wolf
it's
is more
four
damage.
damage plus you could doom guard through it and get an additional damage. But he's gonna Saboteur to kill off the wolf anyway.
Okay.
Oh wow, this actually works out really well because he can trade in the egg also to get a 4/4 on the board. So
Oh, wow. Yeah. That was a really good play with the Savage Roar on the egg there.
he's 1 mana off killing him.
Okay, so if you just power overwhelming this turn, if you just went face and power overwhelming, you could hope he doesn't have a taunt. But he does have a taunt, so this is a much better play.
Could this be the moment of stabilization for Powder? He has complete control over the board, except for one Argent Squire.
I think the mind control tech, the mind control tech probably won the entire game if Powder actually manages to win. Stealing that egg and then being able to pop it plus the extra attack was insane.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because you think about it, he would have lived for one more turn. He would have had an extra 2 damage on the board to be able to push through. And I mean, if with one more mana, he would have been able to power overwhelming and doom guard. So if his stabilization turn was one turn later, then it would have been game over. So now it's a Deckizz who has to sort of draw into a miracle play to come back into this one because Powder's just really close to being able to just run away with the game. Now with the heal also.
Do you think you heal here? It's pretty much the best cards in Decky's hand, and it still won't kill him, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think there's any like 3 card combination with for 7 mana that kills him. Because there's no way you can piece together double power overwhelming and Doomguard to get through the taunt.
Yeah. Go for the second Doomguard off the top, I guess, and just hope he doesn't kill you.
Yeah. But even just Force of Nature would kill him right here. Or if he hits face for 4 twice, he's dead from just hero power. Very unlikely.
That was lucky. He could have just run the bomb into the Doomguard to make sure.
Yeah. And that gets rid of the only out. So I think. Oh!
Oh man, he actually
That's
drew it
crazy.
too.
We
Power
can
overwhelming off
tap
the
into power
top.
warming.
No, he's not dead though.
Yeah, I just don't think there's anything that can do 3 damage from no board in his hand or in his deck. And he might attack into the Ancient of Lore here to preserve the power overwhelming lethal. Yeah, it's a smart play. Because if he just goes face, there's nothing from his hand that can do 3 extra damage if he kills his board. And a Sludge Belcher comes out. Yikes.
Oh man, that's heartbreaking to actually get the Doomguard, but he had the heal.
And if he gets power overwhelming, that's just going to be icing on the cake. Okay. Oh.
He's got to try. Hmm.
He's alive.
Yeah, he is technically alive. Oh man, what a game.
He's... Oh, wow. Yeah, just dragging on. And I think that is going to do it. I don't think there's anything that can do 9 or 8 damage from the hand or from the deck. He can do
Yeah.
2.
Oh, that was a really good series, though. I mean, both players played that really well. We got to see some interesting decks. I really like the tech options in both the Shaman and Powder's Druid deck looked pretty cool
Mhm.
as well. That was just, I don't know, those games were so intense. Like each game was individually pretty damn sweet. So
Yeah, I definitely agree. And Powder is going to take 3rd place. So, of course, he's not going to have an opportunity to win, but he does go home with 7 GEICO points, 1 World Championship point, and $50. So he does go away with some money for taking 3rd place in the tournament. Decky is unfortunately not going to go away with any money, but he'll still get 5 GEICO points and 1 World Championship point for how highly he placed in the tournament overall, which fourth out of a field of what, 250 players, maybe even more, is really respectable finish, especially since this is the second time that he's finished in the top four.
Yeah. I always like to think of it more not how many players were in the bracket, but how many games you had to win in a row to get there. And when
Mhm.
you think about that as a player, it just feels like, wow, I earned that.
Yeah. And you've been in that situation before where you made it through the open bracket, and it's pretty grueling to do that. You're sitting there playing Hearthstone and not just laddering where you can just like snack and watch streams and do whatever. You have to focus for the entire time that you're playing because if you lose once, um, then it's over. So
Yep.
it's a tough thing to do. Tough thing to do. But we do have the finals coming up next. It is going to be VX14 versus Vinib. And both these players, you said before, your predictions, you liked VX14's lineup with the Priest. But do you think that Vinib does have a shot in this one with his lineup with the Mech Shaman?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think both players know exactly what they're doing right now, so it's going to come down to who can maybe get that little extra 5% in those matchups. But I guess I should ask you who your predictions for.
I really liked VX14's lineup as well. I like Priest a little bit better than Shaman when it comes down to like players picking when you have to pick between the two stepchildren between the priest and the shaman. But again, both these players have looked strong today, and we'll have to see. But make sure you guys during the break head over to geico.onog.gg, get some more information about the tournament, and of course sign up for your Geico quote and to win your official TSN PC. But we are going to go to a quick break. But the finals of Open Qualifier for North America #4 between VX14 and Vinib will return right after this.